Welcome back, baseball fans. 1973-76 off-season look at the card set analysis. We're in the fourth year, 1976, just past halfway. Only got a couple more weeks to do this week and then next week, and then we have looked at a forecast for the card set boxes. If you want to rewind and check out the previous Thursday night series. We're going to go to the American National League East and the National League North tonight. Beginning with the Atlanta Braves. We know there are 4 keepers, but we also want to know who they're going to, the rookie class and the guys they wish to keep. So it's going to be Dusty Baker, Rico Carty, Johnny Oates, and Ron Schuler. Most of those guys are going to be older at the beginning. Now you'll see that Baker's productivity has gone down every year in Atlanta, suggesting that they may grow tired and want to send him to the Dodgers, of which he's here now in 76. Not even producing that much yet. So probably not that one. Rico Carty's got a nice card here in 76. A .310 average with 13 home runs. So this is certainly a possibility, particularly because he hits righties better than lefties. Make a fine DH in the National League where there wasn't one. And a nice Ron Schuler card, really, as a reliever now. He's got a good starting card. He's got a good relieving card. You've got options here. 2.88 ERA with Philadelphia. So this is a way that they actually have Schuler versus a division rival. So Carty and Schuler are good options. Of course, Johnny Oates, the 4th player, doesn't have a card in 76. Probably didn't have enough plate appearances. We'll flip it over and look at the rookies. We have a very young Alan Bannister, one of the better utility players in the later 70s, early 80s, with some speed and a very productive card. Mostly against lefties here. The batting average is okay, but we really like the position flexibility. We have a catcher named Dale Murphy. Now, he's too green here, but he could work in a platoon against righties only, as a catcher only, which would be very... Yeah, you don't want to do this yet. You know he's going to be your outfielder eventually, but... Then there's Jerry Royster, another nice Atlanta player. You see it's way too early in 76, but at least he has a good glove at third base. And he can make a decent everyday third baseman. He did. He hit .248. We have Adrian Devine, a reliever, as a righty who gets righties out. He's not that bad against lefties. He's good. .321, and you got a lefty, Pablo Torrebla. And this guy, unfortunately, puts too many lefties on base. I really want my lefties to get lefties out. His ERA looks reasonable, but his card puts a lot of runners on base. So that looks like a mixed bag there between keepers and rookies. Could be one of each they choose. Next up, the Florida Marlins. They're looking at Luis Aparicio, Manny Mota, Vada Pinson, and Ellie Rodriguez. Well, on this list, Aparicio and Pinson will be retired by now. We still have Mota. Now he's more of a pinch hitter. He's lost his everyday outfield spot. He's only hitting .288. That's not that great. But Ellie Rodriguez is a really interesting on-base machine with these walks, folks. Don't sleep on an on-base machine. That's really how you win that's the inside skinny on Strat. Just get on base and then follow it up with a big hit, big home run. 19 walks, 66 at-bats. You do the math there, folks. That's a plus 100 walk regular full season guy. However, you got a +2 on him. So, yeah, it's decent, but I think Rodriguez has better defense in other years. Florida's rookie class probably won't be that great, as they only get guys left off other teams' protection lists, including the Cincinnati Ed Armbrister card, which we could call probably the best of the Armbrister cards he has. Most known for a World Series bunt effort. But here, it's $295. and a corner outfielder with batting average. Good to know, because again, on an expansion team, you might need somebody like that. Most regular Major League teams, probably not. Pete Lecoq, corner left-handed batting first base with power and walks. That's a reasonable card in the platoon. Dave Moats, good defense in the outfield. No power. And good speed, though. Speed and defense and a 241 average. Chuck Scrivener, utility player, not much range, and of course the stick's not there either. 221. And a very young Vern Rule starts out with the Tigers before he goes to the Astros, I believe. Yeah, Tigers. 392 ERA, and look at that. 200 innings and 76. I would not have guessed that Mark Fidrich and Rule both went over the 200 inning mark. Certainly an option. And yeah, again, they're going to have to lean on these rookies, some of those rookies, to make up for an absence of keepers that are reasonable. Next up, the Mets. Mets, traditional guys here. Matlack, McGraw, Milner, and Staub. We find that Matlack is good throughout this timeline. His 72 card was fantastic. And 76 is also good, 4 years into the future. Look at this, folks. 17-game winner, 295 ERA. That's a 4-year deal. Starter, 8. 72 card was a starter, 7. That would be 8 great years out of the John Matlack in the Mets uniform. That'd be better than it actually was. That's what you try and strive for in the carryover league. Here's Tug McGraw. Now, I believe he's Philadelphia's property. And this is how the Mets can game the system. They could just hold on to McGraw and not deal him to the Phillies. Or charge an arm and a leg and see what you get in return. But a great card. Milner. Another nice card. A knack for hitting lefties, sometimes better than righties. Plenty of power and on base with walks. Nice card. Rusty Staub. This is an all-star card, believe it or not. Teammate of Mark Fidrich, just mentioned in the 76 All-Star game. I think he started in it. 299 average, 15 dingers. The only knock now on Rusty is the range. He's now slipped into his 4. He was a 3 for a long time there. Hit run ability as well. Let's look at the young Mets. There should be some promising young guys here. Beauclair, corner outfield. Actually, he's a 3 in center. Platoon player. That's a nice average. 291. 287. Nice card. Pepe Manuel. On base ability. And speed and base running. But bad glove. Oddly enough, would make a fantastic platoon with Beauclair. Those two guys working in tandem. We have Jim Wolford, actually was probably a Kansas City player, I want to guess. Got redrafted into the Mets system here. Great defense, not much of a power hitter. Great base stealer and base runner, bat handler. These are all good cards. Bob Myrick, lefty reliever. And he's okay. But as a lefty, guys like this will, if he was right-handed, I'd say not so much. But he's left-handed. Now, any left-hander will probably see action, unless you're terrible. And he's certainly not terrible. Eddie/Buddy Solomon, relief starter, puts a lot of right-handers on base and gives up a lot of homers to lefties. That's not a good combo. And very young Craig Swan making his debut. Starter 6. 3.55 ERA. Well, you see the Mets are in capable hands now. You know, particularly if you consider McGraw being their property instead of the Philly property, that could swing the whole division. But at least Matlack, my goodness, the Mets are in good shape to continue their 69 and 73 World Series ambitions at this point before things start to crumble. As long as they hold on to Tom Seaver, of course. And lastly, the Phillies. Carlton, Dobson, Harmon, and Taylor. Carlton's got a nice year here. His best year since the magnificent 72. Starter rate. The 3.13 ERA and a 20-game winner. This will probably be the card. As a 20-game winner, you could have, this is how this works, folks. 72, 27 wins. 76, 20. And then when this card runs out, it's 1980, and he's the Cy Young winner in 1980 with 23 wins. Here's a guy for a dozen years in your carryover league could average about 22 wins a year. Arguably, could be the best pitcher in the carryover league history. The 16 years I run the league between 1969 and 1984. Carlton is in the top 5. He and Seaver, Jim Palmer. All right, next up, Pat Dobson. Starter 7. On the rotation, 348. Pat Dobson. Remember, back in 71, he wins 20 games with Baltimore, one of their 4 20-game winners. He's still cooking all the way through to 76. Terry Harmon, nice batting average for Terry here. Nice utility player, hitting about 288. 295, but just 61 at-bats. That's how you game the system. He's an extra player card. Normally, these guys don't get protected, and they end up on an expansion team, but Philadelphia decided to hang on to him. For that, you know, backing up Larry Bow at short, and they don't even have the rights to Dave Cash right now. He could just be the heir apparent at second base. That concludes the National League East. Now we'll go into the best division, National League North, after this little break. All right, we're going to begin with the Cubs. The Cubs are protecting Jose Cardinal, Rick Russell, Ron Santo, Billy Williams. Jose Cardinal, they have a luxury. He is consistently much better than average all 4 years. It doesn't even matter that much. That's great news for the Cubs. It's a 4-year contract, but the power numbers are down a little bit. He's still an ace stealer. He doesn't have defense in center field. That'd be something that they would look into as a preference. Rick Russell, starter 7. And this is a nice card for him with a 3.46 ERA on 3 days rest. A 4-year deal always was better against righties than lefties, though this is probably one of the more balanced Russell cards you'll find. Normally he gives up a lot more singles to lefties, so I like the balance with this Russell. I think they take this one. And Billy Williams is still out there. This is probably his last year, I'm thinking. We still got the 73 year that we'll go to. We might want to retire him before we get to 76. I don't like my Hall of Famers to participate when they have a really bad card. So he'll probably be retired out of the league prior to then. I mean, it's not like you can't find a 211 hitter as a utility player somewhere, or, you know. The young Cubs, we call them. Craig Cusick's heck of a basher against lefties here. He can bash against righties. Actually, was a twin. Pete McKinnon becomes a twin. Does he start with the Cubs? Starts with the Expos. 224, though. We got a -1 arm catcher, Steve Swisher, with full-time power. And hits righties better than lefties. Nice little card there. Would certainly replace a Randy Hundley, following the footsteps of a good throwing arm catcher there. Manny Trio. There we go. This is the replacement for Kessinger. It's a question of which year do you pick, 75 or 76. 239 average here. Joe Wallace, good center fielder defensively. I think later in the decade he plays for the Rangers. Kind of fizzles out. I think he's got like one decent year coming up, but not this one. 254. And look what we got here, folks. Do we start the clock now on Bruce Sutter? It's a 4-year contract with plenty of opportunities to replace him once he gets even better than this. What a debut card in 76 for Sutter. 271 in 83 innings. Note, the time is always right to get pitching on the Cubs. So I think Sutter will be one of the 2 selections here. And again, his ERA gets down to 205 in one of the future years. But still, get him on the team now, ASAP. Dire need for pitching out of the bullpen in Chicago. Starting pitching's pretty good. Bullpen's horrible. Or, it's not very good. It's the thing that's holding them back from competing with the Reds and Pirates. Speaking of that, here are the Reds. Oh boy, this is going to be pretty crazy, folks. We've got Bench, Bourbon, Carroll, and Nolan. Now, Bench, I think, had a pretty lousy year, if I'm not mistaken, but a good World Series, I believe. Oh yeah, you hate to see this card. Oish. Let's just pretend we didn't see this Johnny Bench. That's not good at all. 234, we'll forget that. We'll ignore that one. Pedro Bourbon, he's just okay now. 335, but always put a lot of men on base. Clay Carroll's good. This is a nice Carroll card, one of the best cards of the 4 years for him. And Gary Nolan has good years in 75 and 76. That's not a coincidence. The Reds win the World Series both years. They really need him, you know, and he had a great 72 card. Another year where the Reds were in the World Series. Yeah, Gary Nolan. All right, and here we go, folks. We're going to look at the... They're technically called rookies because they haven't been in the league yet, but a lot of these guys should have been in the league. Here's Larry Bittner. I think he was a Cub. Yeah. They had the rights to him, though, but he's just okay. He was a Ranger as well. And this guy has just been sitting, protected, buried in the Cincinnati system since 74. And my goodness, folks, this is not even fair. So Tolan is gone, finally. They still have Pete Rose in the outfield. They have Geronimo in the outfield. They have Foster in the outfield. So in year one, this looks like a designated hitter, believe it or not. And of course, they didn't have a designated hitter in the National League back then. Well, they do now, folks. And oh my, if you're thinking the Reds are going back to the World Series, this could be their ticket back right here. Ken Griffey. My goodness. Easily, probably the first round pick. Tommy Sant. No, not much there. Santo Alcala. Oish. Raleigh Eastwick. Good reliever for them. Yep, 208 ERA. So now we see Bourbon and Clay Carroll giving way to Eastwick and McEnany. Which, weirdly enough, they were rewarded with World Series wins. This is not a good year for McEnany. And a very young Pat Zachary. Is this the year? Yep, this is the year. Yeah. Pitching on 3 days rest. My goodness, they could go Zachary and Griffey as their two picks. See if that's possible. That means you would ignore. You're obviously ignoring Bench. Bourbon and Carroll. You could go 75 Gary Nolan and then add Zachary and Griffey. That is scary to the rest of the National League. I'm going to say that. You know, folks, I like to think that it's not always going to be the Reds and Oakland in the World Series every year. But there are certain teams that there's nothing that can be done about it. I mean, that they're just that great. And the Cincinnati Reds are the best team of the 70s, you could argue. So, next up, the Pirates. And they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that the Reds are the best team of the 70s. They think they are. Pittsburgh always had great rosters. They're keeping Dave Justy, Richie Hebner, Al Oliver, Manny Sanguian. This is not a good year for Justy, but all the other years from 73 to 75 are. 434 ERA. Hebner's got a good 73 and 4. Uncharacteristically bad year for a pretty consistent player. Always near 280, 300 for most of his career, but not in 76. But this looks like the 76 player. Al Oliver. Oh boy, hitting 323. Yep, 323. And yes, he would be playing center field and a little bit of first base. Probably both positions. Yeah. That'll probably be their first pick. Sanguine is still good in 76. He's better in 75. 290. He's got a 288, a 290, and a 328 option for the Pirates in this timeline. Unreal. What about the young Pirates? Well, here's the center fielder that they're going to need, particularly by late in the decade. It's just a 3 here. Now, look at these walks. The Pirates certainly wish he would have continued to take a look at some pitches. I can't recall, I don't remember this Moreno card with all the on base via the walk. What happened here? Let's look at this. Only 122 at-bats. So 76, he took pitches, then the National League caught up to that by 77 and beyond. He never walked this much after that. It's a shame. Not the ideal leadoff hitter when you're looking at on-base percentage. Espinoza, starter 6, nothing special there. Actually was a Met. DeColby, he leans on the submarining side here, heavily knocking righties out, but the lefties are really hitting. He'll straighten this out a little bit, but right now the lefties are really knocking him around. I wouldn't rely on him to be a closer, particularly you still have Justy anyway. I mean, he'd be fine in your bullpen. You just got to protect him from lefties. Relief 3, dominating the righties. As long as you got Justy, you could get away with DeColby and Justy working in tandem. Really not that impressive as far as the young Pirates go. But both teams will be adding, the Reds and Pirates, Ken Griffey and now Oliver come from this year. And lastly tonight, we're going to do the Cardinals, a team that's trying to figure out how can you become relevant in an era that was not very good to the Cardinals, and wouldn't be until the early 80s when Ozzie Smith and Lonnie Smith arrived. In 1981 as well, when they had one of the best records in the National League in the year of the strike and didn't go to the playoffs. Right now, they're just a team that's waiting their turn, I guess. They're waiting for the Reds and Pirates to cool off. So the Cardinals' path is simply through a wild card, you would think. Steve Barber, John Curtis, Bob Gibson, Ted Sizemore. If some of those names sound like the 1960s, you're correct. Barber and Gibson are gone. That leaves John Curtis and Ted Sizemore. Curtis is pretty forgettable here. He's got a good 73. 450. And Ted Sizemore, his defense is bad, as is his. He can hit lefties okay. That is not good at all. How about the young guns, the rookies? Can they help them out? Well, here's Keith Hernandez. He's a 2 first baseman now. He's not going to have hit for power really ever. Just 7 home runs and a 289 average. It's hard to compete with Stargell and Tony Perez, and you get the idea. Terry Humphrey, catcher. Okay, he's just another ordinary catcher. Jerry Martin, nice little outfitter, always known for defense, hits lefties better than righties in the platoon. So that platoon ability can possibly get him in the league. How about a very young Gary Templeton? He's got his stick at least. Doesn't have the range yet. Yeah, it'd be nice shortstop. Get a 291 hitting shortstop on your team. That's not a bad get. Get him started. All right, John Denny, nice pitcher. Is this his best year in St. Louis? One of the better years. Oh, yeah. 207 innings, a 252 earned run average for Denny. Yeah, I think you got to promote some of these younger guys. Eric Rasmussen, starter 6, 3.54 ERA. They plucked Rick Rhoden away from the Dodgers. 298 ERA, 181 innings. Plenty of pitching options for this team. But the offense is nothing special. Could they improve their team internally? There are some options there. With Mike Tyson. Look at those triples. That'd be a fun card to improve internally. They also could improve Bate McBride internally, as he hit 335. if you improve a player internally, one thing it does is it prevents you from adding other players from 1976, and that leaves a hole in your roster where you have to go into undrafted free agency. In this particular case, for Tyson, you have to find a 1976 player, or whatever card he is. Yeah, these are the 1976. You'd have to find that corresponding year and replace him in undrafted free agency. So that's not a good route for the traditional teams. It's mostly an option done by the expansion teams. Well, that's it for the National League East and North. Next week we'll do the National League Mountain and National League West, and we'll call it for looking at the card set analysis until it's time for the draft. Thanks for checking this out, and we'll see you next week.